seeing what Aaron Rodgers, and no way he was going to play, right? And he obviously is not playing, and he was progressing well. But I remember us texting you about this. I mean, like, dude, are you on the same timeline here where you're moving around, throwing footballs in like 3 weeks? First off, how you feeling? And also, like, how realistic when you saw Aaron Rodgers doing that? Like, what was your thoughts?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm almost 5 months out. I'll be 5 months on the 1st of January. So I've made a lot of progress over the last couple of months. It's been one of the more challenging things I've been through. Physically, mentally, emotionally, it's very difficult. I've never been hurt before, so this was my first experience with the whole rehab process and all that stuff. And I had no idea what to expect, and it's rocked me a little bit. But I think I put in the work, I put in the time, and we'll get back. And it's just a matter of time at this point. With Aaron, dude, I got hurt before training camp started. So training camp's about 6 weeks long. So I'm about 7 weeks ahead of A-Rod. And he had torn his Achilles. Before that moment, I was like, the team, everyone, all the doctors were like, oh, it's going to be 9 months. I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
That's a lot of recovery.
It's halfway. I mean, we're looking at May at that point. And that just, as an athlete, that just sucks because your season's done. So there wasn't a whole lot of urgency at that point. And then A-Rod gets hurt and he's like, yo, I'm coming back. Let me just state this. A-Rod and I, totally different surgery from everything I've heard and done research on myself. He had his Achilles tear was a little bit closer to his heel. And mine was a little bit higher up. So they were able to do what they call an internal brace for him. And they basically, they kind of sutured the tendon back together, but they mainly bolted into the heel bone. And that allows for a quicker recovery because he didn't have to go into a boot. Like I was in a boot for 2 months. I was in a cast for 3 weeks basically. And then I was in a boot for another 6 weeks. So I was essentially 8 weeks or 8.5 weeks. I was immobile. My foot was covered up, and he didn't have to go through that process as he was in a boot, like a walking boot.
Yeah, but he was not.
But his was his was a little bit smaller. Mine, they sutured the tendon. Excuse me. Mine, they had to sew the tendon back together, and it's tendon on tendon, so it's really weak at the beginning. So and I had to basically have my foot like in plantar flexion, which pointing your toes to the ground. For those who don't know, I'm a math and finance guy. I have zero, I don't know anything about the body other than how to lift weights. So this has really forced me to like learn more about what muscles and tendons and nerves and ligaments and stuff are in your foot. So he got to miss, the biggest thing was he got to miss the muscle atrophy that I got. So by me not using my foot at all for 8 weeks, not standing on it, all I could do was really move my toes.
Yeah.
I couldn't really move my joint, like do what I'm doing right here, moving my ankle joint. And that causes, I lose my calves. I lose my gastroc, which is the big calf muscle, then the soleus, which is the bottom part of the calf. Yeah. I lose ankle mobility and flexion. I lose how to like use my toes, which as a person, okay, you don't remember when you started walking. You just know you can walk, right? And like me, I have my son is almost 1, and he just started walking like 3 weeks ago now. And he's not like thinking like heel toe or any of that stuff. He's just like, get up, try to walk, put one foot in front of the other, fall down, do it again. You don't know how to use you don't know how to grip with your toes. You don't know how to do this. It just happens. Like your brain just instinctually knows what to do. And so when you take that away, where you're like, hey, you can't move your foot at all for the next 2 months. And then you get out of the boot and you're like, what do I do? You think it's like glass. If you step on it, it's just going to shatter everywhere. And so like having to just do this motion, like when I first got out of the boot, I was literally moving my foot like just a flick. We're talking barely moving it. And my toes, like I couldn't curl my toes. I'm like, curl your toes, dude. It's not that hard. Just do that.
You've done this a million
times. I'm like
times.
doing it with my left foot right next to it. And I just can't, just because I didn't know how to do it. So I had to like retrain how to stand on my foot properly, where I'm not like, standing on the backside or like leaning to the outside, like really using my whole, and I'm still struggling with that, now. And so A-Rod got to skip some of that stuff. And fortunately for him, he was able to. I was rooting for him. I really wanted him to come back. I thought it would have been it would have been a sick story for him. And I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. I know, I know that's a hot take, and not a lot of people, whatever. But I just think from my perspective, it put a little bit of fire under my ass when this guy's 2 months behind me, and he's like, "Oh, I'm getting back. I'm coming back this year." And then I was like, "Well, fuck me, I'm coming back too."
Yeah,
I'm gonna start going. I'm gonna start doing extra, doing more, trying to force it. Obviously, it's not gonna pan out for me. Didn't pan out for him either.
Breaking news.
Yeah, but it wasn't out of the realm of possibility for him. Cam Akers came back in 5 months, and he was working with a guy that came. He's working with this Russian gymnast that competed in the Olympics in Tokyo, right? This past one.
Yeah.
He competed in 3 events in gymnastics and got bronze in one of the 3 events, and 14 weeks after he had Achilles surgery. So it wasn't out of the realm of possibility for him, but it was a tall task. And as an athlete, like you have to set unlofty goals for yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to maximize it. When you put something that unrealistic where everyone in the world is like, "No, this fucking guy, dude, come on.
Yeah.
This guy's a joke. Like, what is he talking about?" And everyone's joking he's going to do all this shit, ayahuasca and all the other shit that he's into. And I'm like, dude, why? Like, let the man do his thing.
Yeah.
If he comes back, great. If he doesn't, so what, dude? No, it's not the end of the world. But as a guy who's at the peak, like he's at the top, like it's A-Rod, dude.
Yeah.
This guy's a legend. I mean, you have to have a goal like that. He wouldn't have gotten to where he's at.
Yeah, if he didn't push himself like that.
No, and I think that's a good point you brought up, because in general, when shit hits the fan too, and you're struggling, why not try to set high goals, expectations or ambitions? Because the journey in itself is daunting. Where he is at his point of his career, this is the twilight years, and if he wants to keep playing, and he is eager that window to try to win a Super Bowl one more time, it's right here. And even for you in that case, like why don't you want to expect more? So I don't blame. 100%. I think it pissed people off, but as athletes, you brought up the process of it. When you have to go through an injury, that's why I feel for a guy like J.K. Dobbins that back to back going that shit fucks with you. And I think you're giving the example right there. So for a guy, even if you don't like Aaron Rodgers for whatever, all the reasons, I understand whatever it may be, I think you got to respect that he was trying to do everything to get back. And honestly, that gives you hope. Even
100%.
like it sounds like for you, it gave you hope too. So I'm glad you could touch on that. We could talk about that for a while. That'll be more of a conversation on injuries and
absolutely
all this shit.
So much with
much.
I can just say from my experience, it put a fire into my ass, and it's forced me to work harder and do more shit that maybe I would have put off because I don't have to be ready till September of 2024. That's still 9 months away, 9.5 months away. So him doing that it didn't force me. I chose to do that. And I think it's been the best thing that ever happened to me. And you have setbacks and you have all kinds of stuff and they're not doing great. But, for me, I love that he did what he did because I am in a better spot now than I probably would have been had he never gotten it. Or had he had people that were just holding him accountable every day. So he didn't have a choice but to do the shit, do the work, put the time in because people were going to mock him like they're doing now. And,
and I think that's a different perspective than people think about the way that he did motivate and put out to other players of, okay, just because they say your season's over doesn't mean it has to be.
No.
Like, it wasn't necessarily that he was saying, okay, I'm coming back this year. It's happening 100%. He was like, okay, if this is going to be it, I'm going out on my terms. I know I want to try to come back, and it's going to take, I'm going to give everything I can to, unless I physically can't come back, I'm going to come back. And just that mentality.
Yeah. And the other part of it too is you only have one career, right? So when it's done, it's done. When you're older, this isn't something you can go back and go, I wish I did it differently. So if you don't rehab the way that you want and to put your body through what you're hoping to get back into it and get back in the game, you're not going to get the opportunity 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so, and that's the point for Aaron Rodgers had a great career. And every athlete, it's the same way. It's me dealing with it. Nick, you've dealt with stuff. Any athlete that goes through it, amateur, professional, you have a choice. And your window of opportunity, if you choose to keep playing sport, whatever sport that's going to be, you have the choice of what you want to do. So I respect the hell of that. He was going out there and saying, this is my career, this is my choice, and I am doing this because he doesn't want to look. I bet he's going to look back and not have a regret for trying to push to come back.